In 1905, a 16-year-old boy dropped out of school with no qualifications, no prospects, and no plan. His name would one day be known by every human being on Earth. In 1907, he applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. His greatest ambition was to become a painter. He was rejected. The Academy said his work lacked talent. He applied again in 1908, rejected again. The Academy did not even grant him a second interview. 2 rejections, 2 humiliations, and a rage that never left him. By 1909, he was homeless, sleeping in shelters and on park benches across Vienna, selling small watercolor paintings on the streets just to eat. He spent 5 years drifting through Vienna, reading obsessively, developing deep hatreds, and believing, despite everything, that destiny had something extraordinary waiting for him. He read everything he could find: history, politics, military strategy. He was educating himself for a purpose he could not yet name. In 1913, he crossed the border into Germany, a 24-year-old failure with no career, no family, no money, and no future that anyone around him could see. He rented a single room in a Munich boarding house. He was nobody. He was nothing. And then the war came, and the war changed everything. When war was declared in August 1914, he volunteered immediately. For the first time in his life, he had found something he belonged to. He was assigned as a regimental messenger, carrying orders between command posts and the front line under constant fire. For 4 years, he served on the Western Front, surviving artillery barrages, gas attacks, and close-quarter combat that killed millions around him. He was decorated twice for bravery, earning the Iron Cross First Class, one of the highest military honors available to an ordinary soldier. While other men dreamed of going home, he later wrote that the war was the greatest experience of his life, the only place he had ever truly belonged. In October 1918, he was temporarily blinded by a British mustard gas attack near Ypres. He was in hospital when Germany surrendered. When the news of the armistice reached him, he later wrote that he wept for the first and only time since his mother's death. And then the weeping turned to something else entirely. Germany had surrendered. The Kaiser had fled. The empire was gone. And somewhere in that hospital, a decision was made that would cost the world 70 million lives. Germany in November 1918 was a nation in total collapse, military defeat, political revolution, and economic ruin arriving simultaneously. The German Empire was replaced overnight by a fragile new democracy, the Weimar Republic, born in defeat and immediately blamed for the surrender. The British naval blockade continued for months after the armistice. An estimated 250,000 Germans died of starvation in the winter of 1918 to 1919. In June 1919, German representatives were summoned to Versailles to receive the peace terms. They were not invited to negotiate. They were ordered to sign. Article 231, the War Guilt Clause, forced Germany to accept complete responsibility for the war. Every death, every destroyed village, every penny of damage, all of it Germany's fault alone. Germany was ordered to pay reparations of 132 billion gold marks, a sum so enormous it would not be fully paid off until the year 2010. Germany lost 13% of its territory and 10% of its population. Entire German-speaking communities handed to foreign nations without consultation. Across Germany, the reaction was fury. Millions of ordinary Germans believed their army had never truly been defeated on the battlefield. They had been betrayed from within. This humiliation, this burning, all-consuming national shame, was the soil in which something monstrous was already beginning to grow. In the chaos of post-war Germany, dozens of new political parties emerged overnight, all promising answers to a nation desperate for someone to blame. In September 1919, he was sent by the German army to spy on a tiny new political party in Munich. He attended one meeting and never left. The German Workers' Party had 54 members and met in the back rooms of Munich beer halls. Within 2 years, he would transform it into a movement that terrified a continent. By 1921, hyperinflation had destroyed the German economy. A wheelbarrow full of banknotes could not buy a loaf of bread. Middle-class families who had saved their entire lives watched their life savings become worthless within weeks. The rage this created had nowhere to go except toward whoever was standing at the microphone. He had discovered something nobody had taught him he could speak. When he opened his mouth in front of a crowd, something happened that even he had not expected. He gave the anger a direction. He gave the humiliation a cause. He gave broken men someone to hate and something to believe in. The party grew rapidly renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The movement now had a flag, a uniform, and an army of true believers. By 1923, Germany was on the verge of total collapse, and he decided the moment had come to seize power by force. On the night of November 8, 1923, 3,000 armed supporters surrounded the largest beer hall in Munich. The moment had come. Inside, the Bavarian state commissioner was addressing a crowd of 3,000. Armed men burst through the doors and fired a pistol shot into the ceiling. The room fell completely silent, and then a young man jumped onto a table and announced the National Revolution has begun. The plan was to march on Berlin to overthrow the Weimar Republic and seize control of Germany in a single night. It was modeled on Mussolini's March on Rome the previous year. The following morning, a column of 2,000 men marched through Munich toward the city center, confident that the army and police would join them. At the Odeonsplatz, they were met by armed state police. For a moment, both sides stood completely still, facing each other across the cobblestones. Shots were fired. 16 supporters and 4 police officers were killed in less than 60 seconds. The coup collapsed instantly. The survivors fled in every direction. The National Revolution, the seizure of Germany in a single night, had lasted less than 24 hours. He was arrested 2 days later and charged with treason. The trial gave him something the coup never could: a national stage and a microphone. He was sentenced to 5 years. He served 8 months, and in that prison cell, he wrote a book that would become the blueprint for everything that followed. He walked out of prison in December 1924, a convicted traitor, but the trial had made him famous across all of Germany. In the mid-1920s, Germany stabilized the economy, recovered, the rage cooled, his movement stalled. In the 1928 elections, his party received just 2.6% of the vote. Then on October 24, 1929, the Wall Street crash destroyed the global economy, and Germany was hit harder than anywhere else on Earth. 6 million Germans were unemployed by 1932. Families were starving again. The rage that had cooled returned, and this time it was looking for someone to follow. His rallies grew from beer halls to stadiums, tens of thousands of desperate men, finding in his voice the certainty and strength they had been searching for. He pioneered the use of aircraft, loudspeakers, and mass spectacle in political campaigning techniques that had never been used at this scale before anywhere in the world. In July 1932, his party became the largest in the German parliament, with 37% of the vote. Democracy was handing power to the man who intended to destroy it. Conservative politicians believed they could use him, that once in government, they could control and contain him. It was the most catastrophic miscalculation in modern history. On January 30, 1933, he was appointed Chancellor of Germany. The nobody from Vienna, the failed painter, the convicted traitor, had just been handed the keys to one of the most powerful nations on earth. That night, his supporters marched by torchlight through the Brandenburg Gate. In 14 years, he had gone from sleeping on park benches to ruling Germany. Nobody who watched those torches that night fully understood what they were really celebrating. The world was about to find out. Within weeks of taking power, the Reichstag Parliament building burned to the ground. He immediately blamed his political enemies and used the fire to demand emergency powers. The Enabling Act of March 1933 gave him the power to rule by decree without parliament, without courts, without opposition. German democracy ended not with a revolution, but with a vote. Within months, all other political parties were banned, trade unions were dissolved. The press was brought under government control. Germany had become a one-party state. He tore up the Treaty of Versailles piece by piece, rebuilding the German military openly, daring Britain and France to stop him. They did nothing. In March 1936, he marched troops into the Rhineland, a direct violation of Versailles. Britain and France protested, and then did absolutely nothing. Britain and France pursued a policy of appeasement, giving him what he demanded, believing each concession would be the last. Each concession only confirmed that more demands would be met with more surrender. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria entirely. An entire nation absorbed overnight, Europe watched, and did nothing. At Munich in September 1938, Britain and France handed him the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia without consulting the Czechs. The British Prime Minister flew home and declared peace in our time. 6 months later, he occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia. The peace that had been declared at Munich had lasted exactly 168 days. On September 1, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war 2 days later. The war that would kill 70 million people had begun, started by a homeless painter who was rejected from art school twice.